at. So the first race, the first Grade 1, the Supreme Novices Hurdle, what should we be looking for?
So the trend is that winners of the Brave Inca Novice Hurdle, now over 2 miles at the Dabbling Racing Festival, 6 from 9 in the Supreme this century, 153% profit. And that's often the strongest novice hurdle run anywhere before the festival. That predates the current strength of the Irish trained horses. I think the reasons are that the Irish system funnels the best horses into a valuable Grade 1 at the right time, early February. The Irish trainers have long been more inclined to take each other on in a race like this rather than look to win a softer race. That combination provides novices with meaningful experience, such a big plus in the Supreme. And given how much stronger the Irish stables are at the moment, there's every reason to believe that trend can build, and it's a positive for Il Étais.
Okay, so but don't you have to trust the form of the race itself then? You have to trust that Il Étais was the best horse in the race, right? And I guess you do that, or do you just want to always back the winner year on year for the Supreme?
Oh no, not at all. I wouldn't be following it in blind, but I do trust the form. Facile Vega and High Definition probably went a bit quicker than ideal, but Il Étais was never more than about 7 lengths behind. It's ludicrous to suggest Facile Vega's falling in a hole can be explained simply by that early gallop. So yes, they probably went a little bit too quickly. If it had been eaten 2-3 lengths, it might have been an excuse. My view is that the ground is a big problem for him. He needs lots of cut, so Deasy's going to come on to. And so anti-post, I couldn't have him, because if there's a sound surface, it'll probably be a layer for a place on the day for me.
Okay. Facile Vega, you can see 4.2, Marine Nationale 5.5, Il Étais 6.8, High Definition 14.0, Tamuras and Diverge 15.5. There's Chasing Fire 22.0, the first of the Ollie Murphy runners. I probably will give him a go on the day, to be honest, in the same colours as Thomas Darby, who finished second a few years ago. And Strong Leader is a little bit bigger than that, I believe. I know that Deasy's going to come on to that horse. I want to come to Adele next, just to sort of flesh out the case for Il Étais if I can.
Well, I mean, I'm not really buying into the fact that Facile Vega went off. He did go quick. High Definition was kind of pressing him the whole time. But I was thinking, if you can't cope with that pace, you're certainly not going to cope with it at Cheltenham in a race like the Supreme. So I kind of like, I'm not buying into it, to be honest with you, that much. His times, even when he's won for Facile Vega, have been quite slow. So I think either way, I think he'd still struggle with the pace there. So I think the actual right horse won. This horse has taken his time to mature. He's a horse that he was keen himself throughout the race. He wears a hood. But I think this horse is really just starting to learn to race properly now. And I actually think he was better with the stronger pace being set that day. So I still think the right horse won that day. I think the pace at Cheltenham will really suit him. I think he jumped better, kind of going on that forward foot pace. And I'm not buying into Facile Vega. He looked a bit over the top to me for Facile Vega that day. He felt like he looked like he was set alight and then just completely bombed out, didn't find anything. But considering High Definition fell halfway through the race, he went to put the handbrake on Paul Townend, and he kind of then had the race in his hands, but he still couldn't finish it off. So I can't have Facile Vega for me. I think Atelier Temps is the one. I think he was the best horse that won that day.
Okay, lots of comments. Nobody likes Facile Vega. There's a hole in Facile Vega. Lay Facile Vega all day. Il Étais for Peter's punts. Facile Vega too buzzy. Do the panel agree? High knee action, maybe a place lay. I mean, ultimately, he's won on good to yielding. For all he's got a high knee action, we know that day one is never very quick ground. And Deasy, you can just put a line through last time, right? He wasn't even ridden when he was beat, and he finished lame.
Yeah. I could make a case for a few horses in this. I just said I'd go with Facile Vega for numerous reasons. And the first one is that the ground has to be one of the most important things that you look at when you're looking at a race like this. And for a long time, it looked like there's been no rain in England for the last 5 months nearly, but the weather is turning now. That it seems to be that there's a bad forecast coming in. And if the ground is heavy, and I think he needs it heavy, because remember last year he went through almost unraceable ground to win the bumper very easily. If it comes up heavy, I think he has to be a bet, especially at the price he is now. if you watched the race last day, like he went off too fast, everyone knows that, and Paul Tolan didn't give him the best ride. But as soon as he let Tom was gone past him, he stopped riding him. He just left him go. He didn't ride him out. He let Tom won because in the pocket ran up the arse of, I think it was Irish Point that had to come out. In the pocket needs further, and I think it was Dark Ray and there's the other horse. So he's nowhere near the standard. So he won by a good distance, but I don't think he actually bait much once Facile Vega was out of the race. If he turns up and it's heavy ground, like as well as that, if he had no chance and if he was gone, he'd be three times the price he is now. They're very good to lay the horses in William Mullins' yard when they know they're wrong. He hasn't drifted that much. He's actually come back in a small bit since that Dublin Racing Festival. So I wouldn't say no, but if the weather goes bad and the ground is going to be heavy, they'll have to put a bit of water on it already. It's well worth reading Matt's article on the watering as he put up recently. But if it's heavy, I would give him a great chance of bouncing back. And
Matt, surely there's more chance of my 9-day-old going through the night tonight than there is of it being heavy ground on day one of the Cheltenham Festival. And also, can you respond to Tom Leach's comment, Matt?
Well, both of them. You've got to remember that for the last 5 years, we've started on either soft 3 times and heavy once. The high water table now means if that rain and snow does come in, it could easily be really testing.
The last time, sorry, Matt. The last time there was a weather system like this, the Beast from the East, it was called, right? Was 2018, and that was the year that Somerville Boy won the Supreme in bottomless ground. It was very heavy that year. We're getting the same kind of weather this year. There was snow and sleet and everything for the weeks before it. So Irish people know loads about the weather. We have loads of weather. You might be even looking up at the sky now a lot recently. So
it's Micheál fish. Go on.
Yeah, if the weather turns, it throws everything. All farm study goes into the bin. You have to start looking at heavy ground horses, and he is a heavy ground horse, and he would have been, if he'd won the last day, he'd probably be 1 to 3. You know, if with heavy ground, I still think at the price he is, if the ground is heavy, he's definitely a bet.
Matt, very quickly then, how many Supreme winners lost last time out? Do you have that to hand?
3 this century, the old Rogue LeBake, and then both Menorah and Arcalis got stuck in the mud the previous time.
Okay, thank you. Donn.
Yeah, I'm against Facile Vega, and I'm kind of in a minority on this side of the Irish Sea, but it seems like I'm in a majority here. I don't think they pushed him out enough after his defeat at Leopardstown. I think that there wasn't, like, watching the race live and directly after, he thought he went too fast, but as Matt said, Tom wasn't too far behind him, and it was nearly reassuring to find out that there was a problem afterwards, that he was lame afterwards. So I think it's not the ideal preparation. I thought they should have gone a bigger price about him after that defeat, because it is hard. And then suddenly when like going into the race, as Micheál was saying there, like, he was flawless. His breeding, he's obviously Cavega's son. He was unbeaten under all codes. So going into the race, he was a 49 shot, and he was a 49 shot based on what he'd done before, plus his reputation, plus his breeding. Then he's beaten, and then suddenly you see the flaws. But I'm kind of surprised that he's still favoured. I think he might not be favoured on the day. I take the lad's point on Tom for sure, and he's a second season novice as well. He was keen and free last year. He made his debut, I think, at the Dublin Racing Festival last season for Willie Mullins. But I like Marine Nationale. I think he's a little bit of a forgotten horse among people, if not quite by the market. And I know, I'm sure Matt has a stat about horses who haven't run this in the calendar year winning a Supreme. I'm sure they're in a minority, but it was always the plan to miss it. He was busy all the way through the summer. I thought his run in the Royal Bond was a very good run. Things didn't go right for him. He got shuffled back at a crucial point in the race, and he made his ground very easily back up, and he battled on well to beat Irish Point, and that was after missing the last. And that race has been working out pretty well. Cham Kiley, who was fourth, won the Laurels Hotel race next time. Astro Diamond, who was third, she won the Solarina Hurdle Grade 3 race, I think it is. So he's been left off since then to bring him there fresh. His jumping is good. Michael O'Sullivan, while he can't claim his £5 in a Grade 1 race, he's a very, very good rider, and he does have a Cheltenham winner on the board for all that. He lacks the depth of experience of the Cheltenham Festival. I just think he's just a very, very cool rider, and I'm sure that Marine Nationale won't lack from the saddle. And Barry Connell has had his horses in tremendous form all season. So yeah, and he's always said that he holds this horse. Like, I think he said that he's the best horse he's ever had, as in ever owned. So that's a very high commendation. No, I think Marine Nationale has lots in his favour.
Matt, flesh out the any concern potentially for not having run for a while or lack of experience.
Wouldn't be too worried about that. Alcior, only run since Christmas. Captain Seaby had been off since the autumn. So it's been deliberate. That's the point. I think Barry Connell said he won the Royal Bond despite the ground, wanted to keep him away from the winter ground, and he goes well fresh. So if the ground is decent on the day, I think he's got a good solid chance, yeah.
Tom Leach says Marine Nationale is my pick. Hopefully a bigger price on the day once the Mullins fanboys start punting. And Ranjiv says Tamuras, if soft, ? Charlie.
Yeah, I mean, I'm keen on Tamuras. I think this is a race that has quite an open look to it. I think quite a lot of horses bring in a sort of similar level of form to the table. And I just think Tamuras is a bit of a forgotten horse. Paul Nicholls has taken this race out before with Alpha Off and Nolan, horses that have ultimately ended up staying further. And I think the fact that he will go a bit further, Tamuras, has got to be in his favour. And I think he's a strong enough traveller that he'll be able to lay up early. Just going back to what someone said about Facile Vega with the being buzzy, and I wouldn't worry too much about that. He's by walk in the park, and most of his offspring tend to be a bit hot, so that wouldn't be a negative for me. But I think, like with Marine Nationale, Elete Tom, Facile Vega to a degree, they do sort of bring a similar level, and I think Tamuras fits into that slot as well. He's very progressive. Paul's been very bullish about him. He's been off since the Tolworth. Obviously, Constitution Hill did the double of that last year, and yeah, I think he's overpriced. I really do think he's overpriced at 11.0.
Okay, and as I said, I think Ollie Murphy's supposed first string genuinely, not just because he's a Matchbook ambassador, is a little overpriced. And I said the same about Thomas Darby a few years ago when he finished second. And I know that you, Deasy, will probably have a go at Strong Leader. Why?
I've had a go at Strong Leader already. I just really like. I mean, we actually saw him in the yard as one of the first horses we saw over there, and they're all like. Adrian Hesketh was on him. He said, "This is a proper horse." He was unlucky to be beaten by Encanto Bruno at Cheltenham in a season debut in a bumper. But I liked, like, he seems to have press button speed. Press the button, he's gone. He can go up through the gears. He's always raced left-handed this year. Chasing Fire has always gone right-handed. I don't know, is that something to do with him? But I just prefer Strong Leader of the two of them, and not because Ollie is our ambassador. I will genuinely be having an each way betting him or win place betting him and backing him for 4 places and 5 places if I can today, because I can see him. I can see him definitely outrunning his odds.
All right, we're done. That's the Supreme, done and dusted.